What's up, guys? Sparring Cat, and in today's Battlecats video, I'm doing a part 3 of underrated versus overrated, and I'll be covering units that I haven't covered already. If you enjoyed the part 3, let me know. I might make a part 4. So the categories, we have fairly rated in the middle, so that means they're not very overrated or underrated, and the Battlecats community believes that they are fairly rated. So I also have underrated, significantly underrated, and broken. So units that are just not recognized or don't need to be ranked. And then likewise here we have overrated, significantly overrated, and awful. So units that we could all agree on that are super good or super bad have their own category. And units that I feel are weaker or stronger than the general audience will be how I rank whether or not they are overrated or underrated. So let's get into it. So on the thumbnail, you see Naneko. I couldn't find her in this list, so I'm gonna use Naneko as a placeholder icon. But this is Naneko, not Maneko. Naneko. All right, so Naneko. I know in my last video I ranked her pretty harshly, and I heard about it, and I researched her, and turns out I didn't know too much about her. And I'm sure there's a lot of people like that, so I'm gonna put her in underrated. I found out that she has twice as much range as her sister, and despite having a low critical chance, she's also a wave blocker, so I feel I messed up. She's an underrated unit, and, she often gets thrown into the discussion with the limited Nanekos and Maneko, but she's her own unit. She's the best of all of them, in my opinion. So, moving on. Not sure what happened there, but let's see. I'm going to go with Paladin Cat here, and he's another unit that I used to really overlook. Way back when, I made a Dynamite's tier list, and I placed him below Cat Clan heroes, and I was going off of generalist stats. Yeah, big mistake. Paladin is his own niche. He's a good critical hitter, even though he can't do much outside of it. I feel the Battlecats community respects him as a critical hitter and a metal melter. So I'm going to put him in fairly rated. I know I underrated him, but then I had to look into his stats, and obviously he is very niche specific. He cannot be a generalist. You cannot use him in heavily mixed stages, but against metal, mostly metal stages, or just against metal enemies in general, he completely fries through them. So I feel the community rates him properly. I don't think anyone tries to use him as a generalist, so I'll keep him in fairly rated. Some point into this video, I'm going to want to get to the Fest Ubers. I feel like those are really interesting to talk about, so I'll try to do one or two of those. But only find Cyberpunk Cat, wherever he may be. And yes, this is a list of every single unit in the game, so just stand by. Sure, it's easy to miss him. You know what? I want to get to Aphrodite. This might take some time. I'm not sure how much I can move her up. Who really put Aphrodite all the way down there on the list? Ooh. Yeah, there's a lot of they put all the good units to the bottom. I disagree with that. And we're gonna have to take another 5 minutes of getting this back up. Or I could mess up. Damn it. Alright. Well, you know what? I'm gonna rank Yukimura. I'll also have to be smarter with which list I pick because this list is good, but it's very compact. I don't like that. I also don't like the way with Tier Maker how you have to bring it all the way up when there's, I don't know, 500 units on this list. It's almost impossible to bring it up and not take up all the video. But Yukimura. So, with Yukimura, don't worry, that's not my ranking. It's just there for now. But Yukimura, people do make out to be like he's another Awakened Bahamut Cat, and his mechanics are very similar to Bahamut Cat, but he is not Awakened Bahamut Cat. Against his niche black enemies, he's very effective in some situations, but when he can get one shot by a lot of stronger units, not so much. You could use him against short range, and even if they have a lot of health, he could rip through them. Yukimura is good with that, but you know, he's not Awakened Bahamut Cat. People sometimes use him as a generalist, and it's true you could stack him with Awakened Bahamut Cat, have 2 rushers, but he's not quite as strong as Awakened Bahamut Cat, and people do make him out to be like he's identical to him. So I'm going to put him in overrated. He might be slightly overrated, but I believe since he's only strong against that one niche and he still gets compared to a great generalist, then he's a little bit overrated. Let's see. Filibuster. You know what? People really don't give him a chance, and I think that's messed up. No, there's Cyberpunk, but people really don't give him a chance. You know, he's not that bad. He's just awful. I don't think I have to go into it. He might be the worst unit in the game. Where's Cyberpunk? I swore I just saw him. There he is. I always want to try to get both the units on the thumbnail into the video. You know, I don't want to clickbait you guys. But Cyberpunk. I feel like Cyberpunk is slightly overrated, and here's why. So first of all, he has a huge blind spot. But before I get into all of his cons, I think I should get into who he is. So he's super long range, one of the longest range units in the game. And when you get him true form, he could slow units, 100% chance. And that's really good, especially when you do something called cyber stacking, which means you have 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. You have multiple of them on the field. And I wouldn't say perma-slow, but you could really nullify an enemy's offense by keeping them at check with 1 speed. So, Cyberpunk, when you stack him, he's great. But there's also a lot of stages that you cannot use him properly in because of A, super aggressive and high DPS units rushing through your units. 2, short maps. I mean, if he could stay at the base is good, but he needs a lot of space or enemies will get into his blind spot. And 3, he has very low stats in general. Even though his job isn't like a nuker or anything, he's obviously a sniper, controller, but still, I'm going to put him in slightly overrated. I feel like the community, you know, once again, they're mostly right about him. He's very good with slowing and crowd control, but you know, we also make him out to be like he's a top 10 unit in the whole game. You almost can't watch a guide without seeing him, and there's good reason for that. He's very good, but I believe the community slightly overrates him. Are any of the Festubers up high enough for me to rank them? If not, I might just not move them up and I'll rank them. Alright, well, I'll rank Aphrodite. And I believe Aphrodite is another unit who is slightly overrated. Her niche is pretty overrated in my opinion because you have a lot of super strong anti-alien Ubers and then you throw her in, and she's very good against them. But people also, once again, I think they make her out to be like a top 10 Uber in the game. And she's a great generalist, even better against alien. but her blind spot is a problem. She has a long attack animation that could cause problems too because she gets knocked back. If she does, I mean, she has 600 standing range, so most times she won't get hit, but you never know. But the community makes her out to be amazing, and I don't even know if I would consider her the best one in the Almighty set. I would argue Kronos is better, but Aphrodite is great. I am going to put her in slightly overrated. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get her all the way up there eventually, right? Let's see how far it is. Yeah, I'll do it. I think she's a fantastic unit, though. You roll her, you're lucky, because there's some bad Almighties as well. But it's a pretty good set, so if you're a beginner, intermediate, anyone, even if you're an experienced player, I would recommend rolling it. It's one of the best. It's one of the best non-fest draws you can do because of the consistency of the quality of the Ubers in the set. You know, there's some really inconsistent sets. So the Dynamites is a good example that you can get Balrog. You could also get Cackling Heroes. I mean, there's a lot of sets where you're either getting a fantastic Uber or you're not. Nikaluga, for example, you can get Shishilan or Luffy, or you can get Papaluga, or you can get Furaluga. I mean, there's some huge differentials between those units, and you know, you want to choose wisely. So I'm gonna put her in slightly overrated. I could change that to slightly overrated. I don't think she's just overrated. She's slightly overrated. But let's see. I want to try to get to some underrated units as well. You know what? I would make the claim that Nurse Cat is underrated, and here's why. So, it took me my fourth account to beat Bunman, so it took me until then to beat him. The other three accounts, it didn't matter how much money I spent, how much cat food I bought, it just didn't matter. I couldn't beat him, but when I had my fourth account, I was lucky enough to roll Nurse Cat from the Dynamites, and she knocks back and slows black and floating, and I wouldn't say she sold Bun Bun, but all I really needed was a couple of other support units, meat shields, and her, and I won it. And that was huge. Without her, I don't know if I'd be where I am in this game right now. Also, she was my first Uber, so I have a little bit of bias towards her, but she really carried me through a stage that I felt hopeless on, you know? It was a very tough stage when I was fighting it. Back then, I also didn't meet shield, but that's another thing. Nurse Cat is a good controller, and in early and middle games, she could easily be in your rotation for a generalist purpose or against her niche, as her stats got by then. In middle to late game, you can make a case that she's not nearly as useful. She kind of falls off because of the sheer strength some units have, but having knockback and slow against non-aliens, so it isn't Misery Syndrome. It's actually good. Now with the black enemies, they get knocked back a lot as it is, but the slow is definitely the better feature here. The knockback also, I can't tell you how many times her knockback and slow procs save my base. When I'm pinned up against the base, she knocks back and slows, kills a few units, I could send another Uber out, and I win the stage. A stage I probably wouldn't have won without her. So I'm going to put her in underrated, because people do make it out to be like she's an average or a below average Uber, and I think she's slightly above average. There's definitely units that could outclass her in the later game, but if you're early or mid game, you could easily use her through Stories of Legend, Empire of Cats. She holds her weight quite well. And I want to get to one more. I'll do a Fest Uber. I'll go down here, but I'm not going to bring her all the way up or him all the way up. And I'm going to rank Matama. And I'm lucky enough to have a high level Matama, and she's done a ton. Some people can make the case that she's overrated. Some people could say she's underrated because of how good she is. And I'm going to be honest with you. She's not the best fast Uber. She's one of the best ones, not the best. You can give that to Phono or Phonia. But the thing with Matama is she's a fantastic generalist. She has 15 knockbacks, so she could always reposition herself. She's immune to a whole plethora of things, and she can inflict the slow, which we all love. And she has long range, and despite her blind spot, it's not too bad because she doesn't have a ton of standing range to begin with. So there's only so much of a blind spot. I'm gonna say she's fairly rated. I know that some people overrate her a ton. Some people underrate her a bit. But in my jurisdiction, she's an S tier Uber, no doubt. But anyways, those are my rankings up here. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you never miss an upload. And if you agree, disagree with any of the rankings, please leave the comments down below. I like reading through them, and I like having discussions with my audience. So this is a final look at the rankings for part 3. If you guys enjoyed, please do the following. Spartan Cat signing off. I'll see you guys in the next video.